Yeah, what's up, guys? Seth Rodriguez, the Spartan here. Today we are doing DNP Unleashed. So let's get right to it, right down to brass tacks. You guys ask the questions, I answer. DNP, also known chemical name 2,4-dinitrophenol, also known as DNP, obviously. So let's get right down to it, the nitty-gritty, the pros, the cons, the dangers, dosages, etc. Let's break this down and get right into it. What is DNP? DNP is a chemical that you will take, can be taken orally, that basically is a mitochondria uncoupler, which basically means you have the cell and you have the powerhouse of the cell, which is the mitochondria. That's the thing. If you remember taking biology class, it looks like an oval and it's got a bunch of squiggly lines in it. That's basically the powerhouse of the cell, so to speak. That's what takes ATP, energy, from the outside, pulls it in and uses it for, the cell use, for, reproducing tissues inside the cell, for movement, for any chemicals the cell is going to be producing, such and so forth. So with DNP, what happens is it makes this process, the uncoupler. It means ATP can slip back up through the cell membrane. So what's happening is the mitochondria is trying to pull ATP inside the cell, and it can no longer do that due to DNP interfering. Obviously, that is dose dependent, but what happens is the higher the DNP dose, the more the ATP will be able to slip back out of the membrane, away from the mitochondria's grasp, which makes energy conversion very inefficient. Which basically means is that there's going to be excessive heat created. Like I said, it's dose dependent. So let's say per 100, ATPs grabbed, we'll say, at a very low dose, maybe 4 to 5 slip back out of the membrane, and going up, as you taper up the dose, more and more mitochondria are going to slip out. So, no big deal, right? Well, this translates to every single cell that has the potential to use ATP. What happens is every cell in the body, almost every cell in the body, is affected. Primarily, like I said, the ones that use ATP for fuel sources, the ones that have mitochondria. Obviously, if you know anything about anatomy and physiology, other cells like red blood cells don't have mitochondria, so they're obviously not affected. But regardless, what's going to happen is the higher the dose, basically the more heat is going to be given off, which makes movement, anything you do, require more energy. Even if I'm just sitting in this chair, I'm using energy, right? Well, my cells are going to require more and more energy the higher dose of DNP I take. This is primarily the problem, is that DNP will increase body heat dose dependently. And, you're going to be, let's say if you're walking on the treadmill, your body's going to have to use a lot more energy. Your heart rate's going to be higher. You will be getting a lot hotter. Your body will be using a lot more energy. Obviously, this leads in turn to a huge amount of fat loss. DNP, does it work? Yes, DNP fucking works amazingly well. It was first discovered, when they used it. DNP was originally used as an explosive igniter for TNT, and they found out that the guys working basically in the caves or basically blowing up stuff, blowing away rocks, the guys that worked around this stuff started, losing weight very rapidly. They basically got bone shredded from using DNP and being around this all day. Not very safe because, think about it, you're working in a hot cave on DNP, on high doses of DNP. I'm surprised there are no reports of the miners dying, but there have been deaths reported from DNP. And this is the issue with DNP, is that, like I said, just from the mitochondria, not being able to hold on to the ATP and the ATP slipping out of the membrane, that creates heat. The higher dose DNP you take, the more likely possibility for you to overheat, basically for your body temperature to not be able to regulate itself, the higher chance for you to basically overheat, induce damage, or die. After the mining situation had happened, basically they realized, oh man, this works for fat loss. So they started prescribing DNP, and we have many medical logs on this. Enhanced Athlete actually did a video on that before their channel had gotten taken down a while ago. But, they did studies at, 100 milligram, 200, 300, etc. And there was basically, it worked amazingly well. Doctors would prescribe DNP, and people would use it very, very well, very efficiently. but there was some deaths that had occurred, basically from lighter individuals taking too high a dose of DNP, because the lethal dose is not that far away from the effective dose. It's not a very safe drug in that regard. Can it be used safely? Absolutely. DNP is not a huge deal. But then again, the thing is, DNP also builds up in your body. So, if you're like, oh, I'm okay today, I'll take the same dose. Well, you're not just getting the daily dose, you're getting half of the one, 24 to 36 hour half-life usually. It's usually around 36 hours. So, the dose builds in your body. You're still getting half the amount from the day before. So basically, DNP, is it something to play around with? Absolutely not. Have I used DNP? Yes, I've used DNP, and I've tried it a few times. Does it work? It absolutely works. This stuff will get you shredded, but the problem is that I find with DNP is, one, the higher dose you go, the worse you feel. We're talking lethargy. We're talking blues. You're going to be depressed. You're going to feel like you have the flu, basically. You're going to feel like absolute garbage. The body heat, it's manageable. Run the AC up. You can keep your house colder. You can do other things to mitigate that effect. But for me, the worst thing was the lethargy feeling kind of sick, flu-like. And then also, when you're training, guys, training is so hard. Any training or cardio you do is so ridiculously hard. Unless you're on a bunch of caffeine or stims, it's ridiculous. We're talking, so imagine how much less energy you have when you're dieting. You're on DNP, and guess what? One rep, oh my gosh, so you feel like you're gonna die. I mean, depending on the dose you took. I started out DNP 100 milligrams. The highest I think I went was 400 or 500, and that was too much for me. We're talking, it's like I had to get myself revved up to get off the couch. That's how much energy this stuff uses. That's how much this stuff will drain you. So, pros, DNP, can be used safely. Great at burning body fat, amazing at burning body fat. Does it work? Absolutely. The cons, it's easy. Its lethal dose is pretty close to its effective dose, and I could see how somebody who does not take drugs seriously could cause damage using this compound. 3, the lethargy and flu-like symptoms are terrible. And 4, the thing is, it's going to make your training, it's going to make everything very hard. And 5, the last con would be appetite. DNP will make your appetite freaking ferocious. So the thing is, you're dieting, right? It doesn't really make sense. You could either just eat less food versus take DNP and be starving and have to eat more food. So, that's something you got to weigh for yourself. My recommendation to you as an expert would be that if you're going to use DNP, you either use a very low dose, we're talking around 200 milligrams per day, and you run that until you're where you want to be in conjunction with clenbuterol T3, HGH frag, and all these other things that I would advise people to use as a coach, as well as appetite suppressants, because DNP is DNP necessary? Absolutely not. Of course, you can get in show condition without it. Does it speed up the process? Hell yeah, it does, but it's going to speed up the suffering also. So 200 milligrams, that would be my professional opinion, 200 to 300, depending on how much you weigh. Otherwise, you can also go high dose DNP. We're talking around, 600 to 800 milligrams a day. Is that dangerous? Yeah, that's dangerous. I would not advise that personally to anybody, as this compound is dangerous. But that would be the only other option, and you would do it for short cycles. Basically, you're going to eat keto. You would go into ketosis, so that way the cravings are less. Also, the thing is, you eat carbs, you're going to get so ridiculously hot. So you cannot cheat. You cannot eat carbs, otherwise you'll basically kill yourself and die if you're using high-dose DNP and you binge and you eat garbage. So, this compound, low dose or high dose, take your pick. Obviously, I would say low dose, because this stuff isn't something to mess around with. The only problem is with the DNP is, it's a compound that's going to cause excessive body heat, and you could overheat yourself. And the thing is, you can't really stop that besides getting in a cold shower or, turning on the AC, cranking it down to like 50, 40 degrees. So that's it. That's DNP Unleashed. I literally covered everything on DNP here in this video. Obviously didn't have notes. I just kind of, went right through my memory bank, talked about DNP. Works, absolutely works. Can it be used safely? Yes, it can be. Do I advise it? Only if you're in a rush or you need to break through a weight loss plateau. My experience with DNP was my sweet spot was probably right around 200 to 300 per day, just because the appetite increases and you're going to feel like garbage. So, if you're using a bunch of other compounds and your diet is tight, we're talking, you're running your tren, your clenbuterol T3, you're using other compounds and you're keeping your protein high, and, there's really, you don't have to use DNP. But, if you want to speed up the fat loss and just get shit done, basically, go ahead, use DNP cycles. That's pretty much it, guys. That's DNP Unleashed.